This fan's gonna be on, so hopefully the sound isn't too terrible. Great. All right. Well, first actual class that isn't a syllabus day. Yeah. Um, so we'll start off as usual with attendance, and then we'll take a look at our first project. I have some videos and resources and presentations and just general things to talk to you guys about. Okay. With the first project. So Gabby, Allie, did she walk out? Is that who just went out? Does anybody know the person that walked out? Good. Okay. Liam, Evan, Arlette, Sam, Claire, Xavier, Bridget, and Colin. Okay, so probably who that was. We'll find out when she comes back in. Okay, great. So hopefully everybody saw that the first assignment is due tonight at midnight. All right, that's the introduce yourselves assignment. Usually what I'll try to do at the beginning of class, after I take attendance, is just we'll take a look at the calendar and just remind everyone what's due, what's coming up, what we're sort of working into. Today at midnight is the discussion board. Just leave a brief thing about yourself. This is mine from a little while ago, but it's still relevant. Then we do have outlines due on Thursday for the storyboard, and we're going to talk about that storyboard project like now, here in a minute, in a hot minute. So that's coming up. So we're going to go pretty quick with this, okay? Especially with the outline portion of it, so that way we can get into the storyboards and spend some time doing that. So, okay, let me check. Okay, I was like, feel free to take your time, Google Drive. For you guys. I do not. Okay. That's weird. There should be something in there. Well, anyway, whatever. We'll just go into storyboards. So, first thing we're going to do. So like I said last week, this class is all about learning how to put together a good comprehensive presentation or proposal for a project. Again, treat me as if I am your creative director or your artistic director at a firm that you work at, right? And you have this really great idea and you want to pitch it in order to be able to get funding to actually do it, right? Most complicated projects are multi-step like this, right? Like you've got to do a lot of planning up front before you can execute the actual project. So one of the key components to that are storyboards. Storyboards, they are comics, essentially. They are a series of sequential images that outline the broad strokes of a project. They can be really detailed. They can be really simplistic. They're used for linear media. They're used for non-linear media. And what I mean by that is like linear media would be like movies, television, what else? Interactive experiences. Well, interactive experiences would be non-linear because they don't have to just follow one path usually. That's all I mean. It's like following one path versus allowing your user to kind of follow multiple paths or go at their own. So like a video game would be non-linear generally. Sometimes you have story-based games that have to follow certain beats, but the user gets options on what they do in between each of those beats, right? But they generally have to hit certain marks. Beat a boss, finish a quest, whatever, right? So storyboards help the entire team that's working on it visualize it, stay on the same page. In the realm of movies and television, they are excellent for working out framing, like how you want the image to look on the screen, right? How do you want this actual visual? If you're working on a commercial, right, you storyboard out that commercial so that you know what you need whenever you are go to actually film and produce that commercial, right? As opposed to getting onto a set and being like, I don't know, let's try this. Maybe let's try this. That's just way more expensive. This is more cost effective, right? This is efficient. And then it lets you work out ideas. It's always faster to draw and talk about things than it is to like shoot a short film and then talk about it and then have to make changes to it and shoot more. Does that make sense to everybody, this process? All right. So you got lots of examples, mostly from movies. That's where you're going to find a lot of it. We're going to watch a few things here in class. I'm going to add some of that, and then on your own, there are some tutorials, just how to storyboard, for instance, if you really don't know how to draw, or if you are anxious about your ability to draw. I'm not looking for like high fidelity storyboards. I'm not looking for storyboards that look like the ones from here. Yes, I use Pinterest. It's actually really good when you get past all the like terrible ads. I do not remember what the sign is for it, so we'll just use that. That may or may not be it. That is it. Great. I think I have a board already for this. This is a joke board, by the way. Styles for bald men. I just think it's funny. Okay, so I've got a whole bunch in here. Did I link to these? I did not link to these. You know what? I will throw a link to this board in the assignment description. So that is there for you guys. Oops. To look at your leisure. Okay. So, you know, there's lots and lots of different ways to do it. Here's some storyboards for the film Psycho. Right? Like, I can kind of make sense of it. Cameras up, on the ceiling. The action progresses, top to bottom here, or actually, I'm sorry, A, B. Yeah, it's going backwards. A, B, C, D, E. So it goes from here to there, right? And it's just like, this is a complicated kind of visual that they're trying to communicate to everybody that's working on it. Storyboard is a great way to do that. What you're actually going to see in the camera is the stuff that's blocked out in the square, but it's okay to draw outside of that to give a sense of the space, right? It helps you kind of complete the image, stuff like that. A lot of what we're going to do is we're going to spend some time looking at other ways storyboards have been done, other examples. Here are more for Psycho. These are painted. That's not Psycho. That's a different. There were some really simple ones, I thought. Where did I put those? This is a good one for showing motion. The red line is the motion of the element in the frame, right? To give a sense of that movement that would be evident in this. All different uses. Notice the difference in like this one. It's super gestural, right? Like it's not very technical. The drawing, it's not high fidelity drawing. It doesn't really look super realistic or anything. It's just trying to convey the framing, the blocking, the composition, and then the movement that the artist is envisioning in the shot. But the artist wants to happen in the shot. All right. So we're going to try to find a happy medium in this project. In this. All right. The first step we're going to do before we start watching these videos, I want to give you an overview of this. I want you to develop a concept. This is that outline. This is the part that's due on Thursday. Okay. Real brief outline. All right. We need about 12 to 24 frames for your storyboard. Okay. Ideally, err on the side of more, all right, but a minimum of 12. Okay, remember what I said last week about grades. If you do the minimum of what I ask you, then that's a C. That's how C's work in my classes and in this department. All right, you push yourself a little beyond that. It's where you get into your B's and your A's. So you're going to come up with an idea. You're going to outline it. The outline can think of like if you're going to do 24 frames. Maybe you've got 8 rows of 3 or 4 rows of 6 or something like that, right? Just try to think of that grid. You've got 24 frames. How do you want to organize it in the categories? And if you've got 4 frames of 6, then you've got 4 natural chunks or sections of your story that you can tell. You've got a beginning, you've got an end, you've got action in the middle, right? Maybe your like conflict or the sort of arc of the story happens in like the 3rd row, and the resolution is the last row. You introduce your characters in the 1st row, You establish the world in the second row. Does that make sense? Like, you want to break your story down into these different sections, right? Break your concept down. And it can be a simple concept. It could be like, it could be a paper airplane traveling across a room. Like, that could be your concept for this, right? Like, what would happen in that sequence of events? In that 30 seconds it takes a paper airplane to get across a room, right? Or maybe it's a leaf falling from a tree. Or maybe it's super complicated. It's like a kaiju attacking a city or something. I don't know, right? Maybe it's making a pot of tea. Maybe it's frying an egg. Do you kind of see, like, there's a lot of possibilities, and you don't have to overthink this, but you can overthink it if you want to. The danger is, like, getting so stuck, like just being like, I don't know what to do. It's like, if you don't know what to do, I'm going to tell you, like, okay, you're going to do a rock falling from, like, a ledge. And then you have to storyboard that out in 24 frames. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Are there any questions about this? All right. For this project, the overall, like, time, like the duration of this is about 15 to 20 seconds. That's what I want you to keep in mind. We're not actually going to make these, but keep in mind that it's about 15 to 20 seconds. All right. Each of your frames is not the equivalent of a frame in, like, say, the final short, right? It's not a frame of video or anything like that. Okay. They're just natural breakpoints where action changes or the framing changes. Right? Some things you can do too, or some things I want you to do, and this is when you start doing your storyboards, but you can put it in the outline, is you can think about camera movement. How is the camera going to move? How are the compositions going to change over the course of this? This will make more sense after we watch some of these videos where people are talking about storyboards. But certain words you can use are like zoom, fade, crossfade, grow, pan left, pan right. Right? Panning is just moving, like rotating. Like zoom, obviously, going in, zooming out. Crossfades are when, like, it wipes, it fades, but it starts on one side or the other, or the top and the bottom, as opposed to fading all over equally. Right? Anybody ever watch Star Wars movies? They do the circular fade a lot, where it goes like that, and then opens back up again. Right? That's an old thing. And you can incorporate these changes when you're drawing your storyboards. Don't have any that do. Here's some motion here. There's some in the examples. But you could have, like, in one of your frames, you can have your big box, which is your overall frame bounds. And then if you say you want to do a zoom in, say you draw your figure, you draw the head here. I'm using a mask. It hasn't been here since today. So you got your frame. I don't know if you can see that. It's not. Right? Got, like, figure in your frame, and maybe they're talking to somebody else. Right? Here, this is how you start your shot. So we'll call this, like, 1A would be this frame. But maybe you want to zoom into the reaction on this person's face as they're talking, right? So you would draw with the same sort of strength, same sort of ratio here, same proportions. You would draw that box just over their face, and then you would just draw a zoom arrow, do them like this, right? Zoom. You're trying to communicate what's happening as clearly as possible. Right. Labeling is also the best way to do that. So then you say 1B. So naturally, you read it as, okay, that's first, that's second. Does that make sense? All right? So these sorts of notes, when you go to draw your storyboards, are very important. Okay. And then I guess the thing to decide first is if you want to do a linear or non-linear. Do you want to do a storyboard for, like, a video game? Do you want to do a storyboard for a commercial, a movie, short film, whatever, right? Like, linear is probably a little easier because you're telling a beat-by-beat story. So you have control over that. But really, it's up to you, right? So your outline it just needs to be like a Word doc or a PDF of some sort. And then if you've got, so you're doing 24 frames, right? We'll call this, we'll do, just 4 rows, 6 frames each. So that gives us 4 sections. So that when you go to do your outline, you do section 1, so frame 1, stuff happens. Frame 2, stuff happens. Does that make sense? Right, and so on. And that's how you outline the storyboard. Yeah? Okay. If this is still too little structured for you, you can totally start off and write like a paragraph of your story. Just like be like, Sally walks down the street, trips, falls, hits her head, does a somersault, bounces back up, is totally fine. That's your story. It's a sequence of events. It's a terrible story, but you know what I mean, right? Like you can write that at the top and then fit that into the structure of the outline. Cool? Are there any questions over that? No? This is what you're turning in on Thursday, that outline, right? So it can be a document that has like a paragraph of a story, and then that story fit into the structure, or it can just be the structure, right? Section 1, section 2, however you break it up. At the top of that, though, list this thing of like, how many frames are you going to do, and how do you want to break up those frames in your storyboard? Okay? All right. Okay. Oh, in terms of doing this, you can do it by hand. That's probably going to be the easiest, all right? If you're already used to working like on your iPad in Procreate or whatever, you can do it there. That's fine. If you're used to working in Illustrator or Photoshop, you can totally do it there. Hopefully everyone brought sketchbooks or got some sketchbooks. See a couple. Great, do them in your sketchbooks. That's awesome. I can give you 11 by 17 sheets of paper. But having something that's bound is best. That way everything stays together. Bound or digital. Okey-doke. But I do have big templates, sheets of paper, and rulers and stuff. All right? Okay. Don't just arbitrarily draw frames, by the way. Like, draw them according to the aspect ratio for film, TV, another thing you gotta do. Cool? All right. Okay, let's dig into these little videos here. Do you guys know who Ridley Scott is? No? Okay. Have you ever seen the movie Alien? The very first one, the old one. No? Okay, who's seen the movie Alien? Raise your hand. All right, Ridley Scott directed that. Who's seen Prometheus? Ridley Scott directed that. What did he do that is really... all I can think of are his brother's films right now, Tony Scott. Tony Scott did Top Gun, G.I. Jane, or was Ridley Scott G.I. Jane? Actually, you know what? Let's just find him. Let's look him up on IMDb. Oh, Hannibal. He did Hannibal. Ridley Scott did. Ridley Scott. Blade Runner. Ridley Scott. The Martian. Anybody see The Martian? Okay. Thelma and Louise. Gladiator. Oh, man. He has done a lot. They're doing a second Gladiator movie. Look at that. What? Yeah, he did. I haven't seen that yet, though. Okay. Legend. Yeah. Do you guys know the movie Legend? Does anybody know this movie? Claire does. This is Tom Cruise in the wackiest movie. Let me sound of it.
Quiet. Solace of the shadows and the dark of the night. Sunshine is my destroyer. This too shall change tonight. never be another dawn.
Afraid to kiss me? Afraid you'll break my heart. Dare to be alive. Two suddenly. I say yes when I wish come true. I'm a princess. I'm likely to set a challenge myself. Marry. Fine.
Right? It's actually a really good movie, but it's super goofy. And this is the movie Tom Cruise did right before Top Gun. Like he had done a few things before this, like The Outsiders and stuff, but he wasn't considered like a movie star by any means until he did Top Gun. And he only did Top Gun because he did this with Ridley Scott, and Ridley's brother Tony was producing Top Gun. And so like Tony was looking for someone to be in the movie, and Ridley's like, well, this guy Tom, he was pretty good. Tom flew out to Miramar, California, where they filmed it, the Fighter Town, USA. Sorry, I know way too much about this stuff. And just as like an initial interview sort of thing, he shows up with his long hair from Legend, total hippie on this naval base, becomes best buds with like the fighter pilots, learns how to be a fighter pilot, like they lives there for like 6 months, learns how to be a fighter pilot, loves it. Tom Cruise ends up rewriting the Top Gun script into what it became, and then they make the movie. So that's how Tom Cruise became a movie star. But anyway, Ridley Scott made a lot of movies like this. There are some wacky things, but he is considered one of the best filmmakers of the last 100 years, easily. G.I. Jane. Oh yeah, he did do G.I. Jane. Black Hawk Down, Matchstick Men, Kingdom of Heaven, Body of Lies, American Gangster, The Really Terrible Robin Hood, the really bad Exodus, Gods and Kings. His stuff gets a little wacky as he gets older, but Martian was super good. These Alien prequel things are good but weird. And I haven't seen House of Gucci. Was it good? Yeah? You liked it? Claire? You haven't seen it? Okay. Anyway, so Ridley Scott, very established director. Here he is talking about storyboarding. Ridley's background is as a painter. Oh, hold on.
So I found that I get great enjoyment out of just sitting in a car and staring at the landscape from the tree. And whether I'm going through an industrial area or obviously a beautiful area, I'm always fascinated by what I boil down to really the performance of light on objects. And even industrial is beautiful, right? So I started to see that early on when I was a kid, because I've always painted and drawn more than usual. My most informative years were art school, post-grammar school. I didn't really enjoy school. And I basically woke up when I went to art school and spent 7 years at art school, which is fairly standard if you're heading towards a teaching profession. 4 years provincial and then 3 years at somewhere higher level, which was happened to be the Royal College of Art. So yeah, I'm pretty highly trained in that area, and therefore I've always been able to lend my hand to and be able to talk about with pretty well every department which deals with anything that would come under the heading of art, or like costume, like set design, obviously, And the storyboard starts off in my mind as I'm actually reading the script. And I can literally...
So what he's talking about is, he gets the script and he reads it, and that creates images in his head, and he's storyboarding that out to help him like think about how he wants the movie to look and be put together. This is the workflow that I want you guys to mimic in a much more compressed format, of course. So you are going to write your outline, your script, and then do storyboards for it. Okay?
We get flashes on the location, which will very often actually give me a reason to choose that particular location, because I start to see the scene in the room or on the location or wherever it is. And I can literally get images bing in the head. And then that gets put down. I start to thumbnail, scribble things, thinking that, yeah, this will work. This is fine. Thumbnails are awfully fast if you know what you're doing. I'm a draftsman, so I can really thumbnail something down as the state of play for the day, literally as I'm going there in the morning in the car. And it's like a refresher course on what you're about to do. And everybody finds their own way. I think whether you're an actor or whether you're a director, you find your own way going there that morning. So when you hit the set, you know exactly what you've got to target. And sometimes I don't leave it that late. Sometimes it's done way earlier. And in which case I just glance through the boards, and I may have some new thoughts that morning as I'm going in. In which case then there'll be notations to the board or thumbnails on the board to remind me that this may be better or that may be better. It's like a rehearsal for me. So I think that's why very often when I hit the set, I know exactly what I want to do, because I've talked through it with the storyboard artist. In fact, it's almost like the talking through with the storyboard artist that has almost prepared me totally to, because you have to articulate exactly what you're going to do. And so when I hit the floor to do a scene, or whether it's, whatever it is, I usually, ask the actors if they don't mind, but shall I just suggest what we're going to do? And rarely do they say, well, why are we doing it that way? So it seems to work out. It seems to get distilled in that discussion. So they all seem to be perfectly happy about saying, sounds like a good plan, let's do it. This is nothing new, what I'm practicing. It goes back to the great, filmmakers of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I think Hitchcock was the one who was a very much publicized user of a storyboard, and he would stick to the storyboard, which doesn't mean that he couldn't vie away from it if he saw something more interesting on the day. Doing a board which starts from a thumbnail to a polished board, I think is a bit like being a writer. They will start, in the left-hand corner of the canvas or page and work right through. They'll do a pass and just, the key on painting is to actually, what I always found for me, get rid of the white canvas. Get something right across the canvas. Otherwise, if you don't, you're always looking at that area of white, which is like a blank sheet. And so a writer, I think writers very often like to bash through the script. That's why they don't like to hand in pages.
So what he's talking about is like blocking. It's called blocking out, and it's instead of trying to write it's like when you go to write like an essay or something, right? You don't try to write a finished essay start to finish. You know what I mean? You don't write with the intent of never going back and editing. Okay? You write a real rough draft just to get things down, just to get ideas down, the structure down. Then you spend time editing, you're moving things around, you're writing new sections, you're adding new evidence, you're taking things out. There's this whole process of creation. And it's not just oop, here's my finished product, right? So get rid of that pressure in your mind right away. Because drawing and painting is the same way. You don't just you don't start a painting and start finishing the top little corner and having it be completely 100% perfect and then moving on to the next little square inch section of it or something. No, you block stuff out. You rough in a composition, you rough in the basic background colors, you rough in the middle ground colors, and then you put in the foreground colors, and you spend a lot of time in the detail to make everything pop. Right? You may ever watch Bob Ross. Yeah, Bob Ross does this, right? Like he blocks out. He's like does his sky and makes it all pretty, and then he does his mountains and makes that all pretty. So background, middle ground. Then he does the foreground elements, the grasses and the trees. And with the trees, he puts the trunk up, and then he does the branches. And he does, the dark leaf color, the background leaf color. He does the middle ground leaf color. He does little bits of detail for the highlights, right? And then he's adding like little highlights in the branches. So he's working from general to specific, all right? So much of design is working general to specific, right? Start generally, get that all down, then start making it more and more detailed as you go about. Just keep doing passive. I'm going to stop with him and move on here. Okay, let's do the next one. So that's Ridley. The storyboards for No Country for Old Men are really good. So this is fun. This is a side-by-side, shot-by-shot comparison of the storyboards for No Country for Old Men. Anybody see that? Raise your hand if you saw No Country for Old Men. It won an Oscar, you guys. Okay. A little before your time, maybe. Maybe we'll put it on. It's a little violent. It's a little scary. Javier Bardem is terrifying. But it's really, really good. Oh yeah, so these storyboards are there's a different kind of storyboard too, where you can take static storyboards and throw them into like After Effects or something and add motion to them, right? So that you get animated storyboards. So there's all different kinds of layers of polish to storyboards. We of course will not be doing. If you take motion design with me next semester, we will be doing this.
Worry, it ain't gonna hurt you. Drive me on out of here.
Sorry, should have warned you. There's a little bit of blood and violence. So, does anybody have a problem with it? It's okay if you do. You can leave if you want. Still showing. So here's the script on the right-hand side. So you see, the storyboards provide a plan for the framing and the action. Yeah. Okay. The Thing. This is one of my all-time favorite movies. John Carpenter. You guys know who John Carpenter is? Yeah. Great. All right, Liam. Liam, are you a film buff? Kinda. All right. John Carpenter. Did a lot of seminal horror films. Anybody who likes horror movies? All right, you guys ever see like Halloween? Yeah, that's John Carpenter. Like one of his first films. Escape from New York? No. Big Trouble in Little China? Yeah, yeah. All John Carpenter films. Oops. He does the music too. So these are more painterly storyboards, all right? Someone just painting them out really roughly. Looks like with watercolor. So one thing to notice about these is how different they are in some respects, right? But it's always the same like action, right? Like them descending down into the crater, an overview of the spaceship, they're looking at it, you know, that kind of thing. They're landing. So it gives you a plan for the action. And this is all you need to do with a storyboard, right? It doesn't matter if it's not going to end up that way. This is kind of what Ridley was saying in his. It's like it gives you a plan, and some days you stick to it, and some days you notice things that are different, and you have different ideas, and so you change it day of, right? It doesn't mean you are stuck doing that. Just what the storyboard says.
Jesus, how long you figure this is? Well, the backscatter effect's been bringing things up from way down around here for a long time. I'd say the ice virgin is 100,000 years old, at least. There's no regions blew it up.
I don't know if I'll watch the whole thing. Yeah. I don't want to ruin the movie for you, so I'm gonna stop it there. So you know they're giving a general plan, and there's some shots that aren't storyboarded and some that aren't. Or I'm sorry, some that are and some that aren't. But it's a matter of providing structure, it's providing some sort of guide. Okay. Now then, there's some people like George Miller who did the Mad Max films, right? The first Mad Max, Thunderdome, Road Warrior, Fury Road. Do you know what other movie he's also done? Happy Feet, Babe. So George Miller did those movies because those scripts were written by his daughter, and they're great scripts. They're great movies, right? But he's like, yeah, I'll make your films, you know, that kind of a thing. I'll help you find funding and stuff. Anyway, all right. So Mad Max Fury Road. Miller likes to storyboard and stick to the storyboard. Now, this isn't true for all of his films, but on Fury Road, there was no script. They storyboarded it first, had a big conversation in this big room, wrote all the storyboard or drew all the storyboards for it, and then wrote the script based off the storyboards. Right? Does not usually happen that way. Usually it's script first, then the storyboards, then production, right? But in this sense, they started with the visuals because he wanted the visuals to be very strong. Right? He's really good with visuals. So anyway, this is a fun one. Also, who's seen Fury Road? Yeah, okay, good. Fury Road is a movie you have to watch. It's an excellent, excellent movie.
looked at me! He looked right at me! Look at your blood bag! He turned his head, he looked me straight in the eye! He was scanning the horizon! No! I have waited! I have waited in Valhalla! We got vehicles from the citadel. They're firing planes. They want reinforcements from gas towns in the port town. What is it? Back up. Keep going. It's a detour. Eyes right! No! On the right! I know! Should we turn around and run them into our backup? No! We're good! Bang it!
Okay, so you see sort of how like they've got their storyboards done. Actually, there's a really good X. I always forget those. It's a really good image of what their storyboard room looked like. If it'll come up. Oh, that's a tiny image. That's not the one. So that's what the storyboard room looked like for them. So these are all their storyboards for the film. You know, they would sit there and just like walk through them and talk about them. And this is how they wrote the script for it. They did all the drawings first and then sat down and like, okay, this is, you know, narrated the action and just wrote that down. Like what was going to happen and discussed it and all that stuff. So big plans. All right. Our last one, Adventure Time storyboarding. This is just an article about it, but this is part of the process of how they would, like the guide they would use, they would give to new artists that would work on the show, new animators that would come onto the show. They'd be like, all right, here, this is how you storyboard for this show in order to keep things consistent. So they had a style guide. Usually you call these things style guides. All right. If you did web design with me, we made style guide in web design. If you do GD and GD1, GD2, you probably do a style guide in there for branding, a branding package of some sort. Style guides just help keep everything consistent. So they're saying don't do cramped staging, so you should always show full body, right? This is an awkward position. This is a full shot, yeah. This is a medium shot, yeah. Right, showing the hands, background. you may be able to see it, but there's, yeah, this dotted line, that's the central safe zone. Okay? A safe zone is like an area on the frame where you kind of want to keep most of your action, right? Because it's not going to get arbitrarily cut off if an aspect ratio changes or something like that. That makes sense? Right? There are templates that you can use, like in Premiere and After Effects. There's a new editing software called DaVinci Resolve that the department is starting to transition over to. So if we do that, if you get a chance to use that, that's definitely got it. Photoshop has it. Illustrator has it. Very easy setup. Usually it's just margins. You just set up some margins or a box like this. Shot planning. So like shot 1, panel A. Shot 2, panel A. Character and size placement is too similar in these. This is different. See, the difference is what helps sort of sell the motion, sell the changes, right? There's not a lot of change here. Same with these. Like, there's a lot of change here, but their positions and attitudes are very similar. Notice this horizon line is the same. That's what they're pointing out here, right? Whereas the horizon line changes here to give you that sense of like the camera kind of coming up. Does that make sense? So these are just little visual tricks to keep in mind when you're doing yours. Showing camera movements, don't arbitrarily do that. Keep everything within the same panel because these are the same sizes. Just make your first one smaller, this one bigger. So when you are doing your storyboards, if you draw them out yourself, pick your size, keep those the same size. You can have actions fill out. One is going to show your shot. The shot needs to stay. You can show like zoom, fade, whatever in those shots, smaller. Having crop out. Great. Oh yeah, see like that. This pan, this is like they put two boxes together. I'm okay if you do that. Ideally, what you would do is try to fit it all into one shot and just show them. But the main thing to take away is that this frame size does not change because your camera is not going to change. Right? So if you're going to show a pan and you want to do the double, make it so that it is actually two of those. Cool. Yeah, some guides on posing. Notice they've got a big place for notes. When you were doing notes on yours, you can come up with your own system. That's totally fine. But panels need to be labeled, all right? Especially if you're doing sub-panels, so you would do like panel 1, panel 1A, panel 1B, etc. Okay, to show sequence. Your sequence should go left to right, right? You get to the rightmost side, come down, keep going, etc. Right? Give yourself space, either at the bottom or on the sides of your storyboard panels, to leave notes. There should be a description of what's happening, camera motions, kind of the overall feeling of what's going on in the scene. Don't do word bubbles in your shots. All right. If there's dialogue, put that in the notes at the bottom. Cool. Make sure it's only important dialogue though. Yeah. Okay. I don't need you to like cut and paste a script down there. Right? It should just be descriptions of the actions in that shot. Okay. You can look at this later if you want. There's a lot here. All right, cool. On your own, there's a bunch of videos, storyboarding for people who can't draw, storyboard basics, camera movements, and the Pinterest examples. Okay? Great. Are there any questions over what we're doing? No? Okay. We can be done, or we can spend the next 20 minutes. Yeah.
So, like, if you have like one, all on one.
No. I would only do like 2 rows per sheet,
Okay.
depending on how big your paper is. You can use what I don't want is I don't want one panel per shot or paper. But you know, if you're using smaller sheets of paper, then maybe do that because you can always like pin them up. But if you're using something at least as big as the tabloid size, that what I've got on the board here or the table, you can probably get like 6 panels on there comfortably, 4 for sure. But I wouldn't do any more than 6 on that. Yeah, yeah. Use multiple sheets of paper, guys. Okay. Yeah. Yes, you can do it on your iPad. On that, it's because you can zoom in and out on that. However you want to do it. I would just break it into your structure that you figure out for in your outline. Right. So if you're doing like, you know, you're doing 24 frames and you're doing 4 frames per section, you've got 6 sections, right? Or 6 frames would give you 4 sections. Cool. All right. And you don't have to do just 12 or 24. You can do any range in between 12 and 24. You can go over 24. I wouldn't go too much over. Like if you find yourself in the 50 range, that's probably too much. I mean, good for you, I guess, but make sure that the rest of it's not suffering for that ambition. Yeah? Okay. All right, you can spend the next like 15 minutes thinking about it. Maybe getting started on your outline. You can take off if you want to. I don't have anything more for you, but I'm happy to sit here and talk to you about your ideas. Okay? Great.